today I want to still go along the elbow stuff, and then look at how we're going to like what we're doing prescribing exercises. So Waleed, for example, anytime he bends his elbow and loads up the elbow, it starts to get sore. We went over straight arm work, but we'll go over kinetic chain muscle testing in the upper extremity to see if we need to bring in or take out the elbow and the wrist, if we need to isolate either proximal or distal. And then you can better get an idea of what exercises to start with clients when they are coming in with elbow pain. All right, cool. So Waleed's going to come up. So quick scan with Waleed. Again, review, repetition. Turn this way. Does he have wrist extension mobility issues? No, not really. Turn the palms up. Extend them. Still pretty good. Okay. Bend the elbows. Still good. Turn them over. Still pretty good. Turn face the camera. Show the camera how good your mobility is. Extend the wrists. Okay. So I'd say, he's hitting at least an 80-degree active range of motion. Okay. What's your shoulders doing? Straight up, back down, turn this way, extend the shoulders. We could do better there. Okay. Can you go hand behind back? Let's just look at combined movements. Turn this way. Nice. Switch. Good. Hand behind head. Good. Okay. So we can say that he doesn't have any active mobility issues, but he's still having, is it left or right elbow pain?
Left.
Left elbow pain. Okay. So let's lay down your back. So we've assessed passive range of motion before. That's all clear. We did find a C7 nerve root compression issue. Tell everybody how you were feeling your elbow pain today, or was it yesterday?
It was today.
What were you doing? Stand up and show everybody what you're doing, and then everyone can see why his elbow. No, do it.
I was holding Mustafa today. He's 2 months old, and I was just cooking breakfast. It took like 30 minutes. I was just holding him like this. But yeah, so it was hurting then.
Life, it's not. It's it is what it is.
I can't do my left
holding
hand.
A baby on this hand and then working that. What's he doing? Locking it up, right? Flex, lock. What else might he be doing? Up in right, compressing the neck. Okay, so lay down your back. So these are some of the things when we ask clients, okay, what brings on your pain? Well, I was holding my baby and I was doing this for half an hour. I'm like, I think I know why your elbow's sore. Okay.
I accepted it.
No, I know that's okay, but sometimes we need realization. So doesn't really have too much neural tension, which is good. More of a myotomal issue. But now we're going to go over and test kinetically both proximal and distal and see where his issues are or what we need to bring in and bring out. So with the kinetic chain muscle testing, if we have proximal strength and then all of a sudden we bring in that distal segment and it causes inhibition in the system, we might need to do a little bit of local strength, right? So we can either test local distal, local proximal, and then we test them together to see what's an issue. Is it a connectivity issue? Is it a local problem, one end or the other? Or do we need to design an exercise to bring them both into the circuit, to bring them all together? So we'll test the right side first. So we'll look at kind of this flexor chain across, so pec, okay? Pec major works pretty good. If I bring my hand over top of the wrist into radial deviation, pretty good. If I flip it, hold, so still pec, bring it in, still good. If we look at kind of the extensor chain, I'll just test it here for just demonstration purposes. Don't let me lift. So lat, flex the wrist, bring that in. It's okay. Bring it this way.
I feel something in my neck when I do that.
You feel something in your neck when you do that. So you're okay.
Yeah.
At least it's strong, but you might not be stabilizing. Yeah. Like you're doing something different up top. Okay. So tricep. Okay. Extend the wrists. Good. Then we can go neutral. So ulnar deviation. So we'll test proximal first. So these are all the extensor chains. And the upper extremity, there's more variations because of the different grip positions that we can take. Okay. And we can even go in here, hold, make a fist. Okay, pretty good. So let's test left. We'll test the pec major, hold, good. Bring in the radial deviators. Not too bad. Okay. Hold again. Good. Ulnar deviators. Still okay. We can even test it here, kind of a false grip. Hold, hold, not too bad. Okay, extensor, lats, hold. Okay, extensors, tricep. So that was proximal, proximal. Let's check it, sorry, with the flexors. Flex the wrist, hold. A little tougher. Okay. So we got a little bit of distal inhibition. It was a little bit more of a struggle when he gets the wrist flexors involved. So I can even come up, test the wrist flexors in isolation. Hold. Pain.
Yeah.
Okay. But hold. We're looking for weakness. Okay. So even though he has pain, he's strong and painful with that. Okay. He's strong, painless with the lat. But as soon as we bring the kinetic chain together, he starts to shut down. So what kind of exercise could we do with Waleed on the left side?
Symmetric at the wrist flexors. Yeah.
You can, but it's creating more of a kinetic chain problem.
Okay.
Because when we test the wrist flexors, let's just test them down here. Hold. They test pretty strong.
Yes.
But when I test the lats with your wrist flexors, that's when it shuts down. So you have a connection problem. You don't have a proximal isolation problem. You don't have a distal isolation problem. You have a kinetic chain problem. So doing some kind of pull down with wrist flexion in a false grip back into here can help him reconnect that. So doing some isometrics, he can even, if he wants, hold that and then do some wrist curls back in here. But the idea is to reconnect the kinetic chain. So this wrist flexor chain or this the shoulder extensor chain with the wrist flexors is where he's getting disconnected. So he's losing power. Okay. If we test it down in here, so kind of a neutral hold, not bad. Ulnar deviation, that's fine. Okay. Hold, so internally rotated, hold, lift, little radial deviation. Okay. A little bit on that one, but the main one for him would be with the wrist flexors. Okay. Now let's test the wrist extensors. So tricep, hold, long head tricep in isolation, pretty good. Wrist extension, hold, pretty good. Okay. Where's your elbow pain? Is it medial or lateral? Medial. So he's got medial elbow pain. So he has good range of motion, right? Look at his passive range of motion. Okay. When we test in isolation, it's pretty good. But again, when his shoulder is in this particular position, or he's trying to do some kind of pullover, he loses it. Okay. So this is where what's that? For sure. We know there's a neck issue. Yeah. So he's not stabilizing up here as well. Okay. So would he benefit if we put a band around his neck? So if you push your head down into the table and then hold, that actually made him a little bit worse. So we might need to dissociate the neck or just teach his neck to get into a better position without necessarily creating tension around here, because whatever reason, his nervous system doesn't like it. But if he dissociates the neck, isolates the lats and the scap in this position, we can start to get him turned on a little bit better. Okay? Make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Say he's a pitcher, right? We look at the rotation change. So internal, external rotation. So we test those external rotators here at 90. Hold. Don't only lift you up. What do you feel?
Pressure.
Oh, the pressure. You don't like that in the shoulder.
Yeah,
okay.
The shoulders.
Okay, hold again. Okay. Now if I check the wrist extensors with external rotation, not too bad. Okay. We can test, again, radial deviators. This is where, if we're giving rotator cuff exercises or rotation exercises at the shoulder, if we need to bring the grip in or we need to take it out. If he had a local proximal weakness, say, he's just not rotating well here, maybe we put a band around the wrist and we keep this out because he's overusing this. Okay? So let's just say, while he's coming in and he's got shoulder issues or elbow issues or whatever it is, and proximal testing was weak, kinetic chain testing made him stronger. Well, he might be coming in with some kind of tennis elbow or golfer's elbow because he's over gripping. So he's using too much of the elbow to compensate for weakness at the shoulder. So we put a band around his wrist and we isolate that instead, right? So if we go internal rotation, hold the arm. Okay, and then he flexes, false grip, falls apart. So the flexors of the wrist are inhibiting his shoulder. Again, we can play with some isometrics, but he needs to work on that false grip in that internally rotated position. Is that making sense so far? Okay. So test proximal isolation, test distal isolation, test them together, and then see what happens. Is it a local proximal problem? Is it a local distal problem? Or is it a kinetic chain problem where they're not working together? Okay. So right now we found Waleed's got an extensor lat connection problem with a false grip. His flexors aren't kind of talking to the shoulder enough. Okay, and this is where a lot of the isometric work can come into play. So you can isolate the proximal, get them up against the wall, band, wrist curls, dowel, wrist curls. So we did pec. We can check pec minor. Same thing. Punch towards the ceiling. Hold. Okay. Flex the wrist. Hold. Lost pec minor. Okay. Serratus anterior. Punch. Hold. Pretty good. Check radial deviation. Hold. Pretty good. Punch towards the ceiling. Do false grip. Hold. Good.
I cheated. I grabbed him.
So you're stabilizing his spine. Hold. Okay. So serratus is firing up fine. So he's losing pec minor and he's losing lats with a false grip. So what can we do? What kind of exercise would we do or pattern would we do with Waleed to connect that kinetic chain? I mean, we talked about the dowel and the band, right? We can do that back here. What could we do for pec minor? Wait right there. Okay. So punch towards the sky, bring it across to your hip. Hold right there. Breathe. Give me a little neck turn. Keep the neck out of it because you're compressing the neck. And you feel your pec lighting up? Good. Okay. And he's nice and shaky. Is it pain? No, no pain in the elbow. But just getting him into that isolated position, add a little tension there, just to get his brain to connect wrist flexors, false grip position with pec minor, so that he can now get this firing up a little bit more effectively with a proper grip, might be what he needs. So now you can tailor those exercises a little bit more specific to the individual, right? Because doing isolated wrist work, not muscle testing is not really showing that. Isolated proximal work, but kinetically, he starts to fall apart with different hand positions. Okay, flip over into your tummy. So we found some flexor issues. So pec minor, and we found lats. Okay, scooch over, Wally. So if we go on to the back side, we check all of his scap retractors, push up towards the ceiling. So with this wrist position, this hand position, or internally rotated shoulder position, what muscle am I primarily testing? Rhomboids. Yep. Yeah, rhomboids. Okay. Thumb up is middle traps. So push up. Okay. So he's doing pretty good there. Okay. And you notice I'm off the wrist. I'm proximal to the wrist joint because I don't want to bring this in yet. Lower traps, elbow straight. Stabilize on the opposite. Push up. Lower traps, pretty good. Now let's test it with a couple different hand positions. So we go rhomboids, hold, make a fist for me. Okay, ulnar deviators, fine. Okay, it's going to change what muscles. We're not really concerned at this point which muscles we're doing. We're looking more the kinetic chains. So radial deviation rhomboids, or let's just say scap retractors, fine. Middle traps or lower traps with radial deviators, and he shuts down. So we can't say that he has weak or inhibited lower fiber trap, because when I isolate lower traps away from the wrist, it's fine. But as soon as I bring those wrist radial deviators in, push, now he has a problem. But we still don't know, do we have a local weakness issue? Hold the hand right there. Hold it right there. Now I can test proximal isolate it, and that's fine. That's okay. It's okay. Go. So does not have a distal local problem, does not have a proximal local problem, but has a kinetic chain problem. So what exercise can we give Waleed to connect those two together? Right? Dumbbells in the hands, that works. The clubs, right? Weighted dowel here. If it's too much for him to hold it here, right here's fine. Get a weighted dowel, dumbbell, this position, and then get them to slowly bring in more leverage against more gravity. Okay? We can lift, isometrically hold, and then change the body position, and then eccentrically lower. Okay? So he can get here, but he can't hold it. So put him in the position, change the body around, and then have him slowly decelerate out of that. Okay? Wrist extensors, lats, check lats. Let's check your lats here. So isolate the lats, push up. That's extensors. Hold. Don't we pull you out? That's fine. Test with the wrist flexors, so extensor chain, and he falls apart. Right? If we're not sure, flex the wrist. Don't break. Strong. So do we have a distal problem? Nope. Do we have a proximal problem? Nope. Do we have a kinetic chain problem? Yes. Okay. So this is just going to help determine, do I need to localize proximal distal, or do I need to connect the muscles together? Okay. Make sense? Cool. Grab a partner, muscle test. If you want, beat up on Waleed so you can feel what we saw. And hand placement matters, because we don't want to touch the muscle we're touching, because when we touch a muscle that we're activating, what do? Possibly facilitate it, right? Because he can feel where the touch is. It's going to light up the sensory cortex, which then facilitates better activation. We want to see what he does automatically. Okay? So practice on Waleed.